Just to day one, I'm standing in my kitchen holding a bag of chips, a frozen dinner, and a 2 liter of soda. And I made a decision that I honestly thought was going to be pretty easy. No ultra processed food for 60 days. Spoiler, it wasn't easy, not even close. But what happened to my body, my skin, and my mind over those 60 days? I genuinely was not prepared for any of it. And there's one specific thing that happened on day 11 that I need to tell you about. Because that was the moment everything changed. So let's back up. Before this challenge, my diet was honestly, embarrassing to say out loud. Breakfast was cereal or a granola bar. Lunch was whatever I could grab fast, usually something from a drive-thru or a bag from the vending machine. Dinner was frozen, microwaved, and done in 4 minutes. I wasn't thinking about it, and that's kind of the whole point. Ultra-processed food is designed so that you don't think about it. It's designed to be fast, cheap, and just satisfying enough that you keep coming back, but never actually full. Never actually nourished. And I started noticing things. My energy would completely crash every single afternoon around 2 o'clock. My skin was breaking out constantly, and I'm in my mid-20s. That felt wrong. My focus was scattered. I'd sit down to do something, and within 10 minutes, my mind was already somewhere else. So I did some reading, and I found out that roughly 60% of the average American's daily calories come from ultra-processed foods. 60%. And these aren't just foods with a few extra ingredients. We're talking products engineered in labs with emulsifiers, artificial dyes, flavor enhancers, preservatives. Things that don't exist in nature. Things your body doesn't quite know how to handle. And something about that just clicked for me. I wanted to know what would happen if I removed all of it. Not forever, just 60 days, whole foods only. Nothing I couldn't recognize as real food. That was day 1. Days 1 through 3 were actually fine. I was motivated. I went to the grocery store, I loaded up on vegetables and eggs and rice and fruit. I cooked real meals. I felt genuinely good about myself. Day 4 is when the cravings hit. Not like, oh, I kind of want a snack. I mean a deep, almost physical pull toward anything processed. Chips, fast food, anything salty and crunchy and artificial. It was like my brain was sending out an emergency signal. And here's the thing I learned. That's actually real. That's not just a lack of willpower. Ultra-processed foods are specifically engineered to stimulate your dopamine system. The same reward pathways that are involved in habit formation and, yes, addiction. So, when you cut them out, your brain genuinely goes through a kind of withdrawal. The cravings, the irritability, the low-grade headache I had on day 5, all of it is documented. By day 7, I was tired, a little cranky, and I almost drove to a fast food place at midnight. I sat in my car for about 4 minutes. Then I went back inside and ate some almonds. Not as satisfying, but I stayed the course. Day 8 is when something shifted. I woke up before my alarm. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I want you to understand. I do not wake up before my alarm. I have never in my adult life been someone who wakes up naturally and feels rested. I thought that just wasn't how I was built. But on day 8, I opened my eyes. The room was quiet and I felt, okay, actually okay. Not groggy, not desperate for coffee, just awake. My sleep was changing, and it makes sense, because processed foods, especially the sugar and the additives, they disrupt your gut microbiome, which directly affects your sleep quality. Your gut and your brain are in constant communication. When you start feeding your gut real food, that communication gets cleaner. And then day 11 happened. I was getting ready in the morning, same routine, looked in the mirror, and my skin was different. Calmer. The inflammation I'd had along my jawline for years, that low-level redness that I'd just accepted as my normal, it was visibly less. Not gone, but different. Better. I'd spent real money on skincare products. I'd seen a dermatologist. I'd tried different routines. And in 11 days of just eating differently, My skin was responding in a way that nothing else had managed to do. That was the moment this stopped feeling like a challenge. That was the moment I understood something was actually happening inside my body. By week 3, the physical cravings were mostly gone, but a new kind of hard had started, the social side. Every gathering, every dinner out, every casual moment with friends or family involved food that wasn't on my plan. And I don't mean people were being difficult. I just started noticing how completely food is woven into everything we do together. Celebrations, comfort, connection. So much of it runs through food. Cutting out processed food forced me to sit with that, to find other ways to participate, or to be okay with just being a little different in those moments. Some days that was fine. Some days it felt genuinely lonely. But something else was happening that made it worth it. My focus, my actual ability to sit down, concentrate, and do deep work. It was coming back in a way I hadn't felt in years. I'd finish tasks. I'd have ideas that I'd actually follow through on. I'd read without losing the thread every 2 minutes. The gut-brain connection again. Your gut produces the majority of your body's serotonin. When you clean up what you're feeding it, your brain chemistry starts to stabilize. That's not wellness blog talk. That's published research. And somewhere around day 25, I realized I hadn't had a 2 o'clock crash in over a week. That might sound small, but for someone who had built their entire afternoon routine around surviving that crash, that was everything. Month 2 is where things started getting almost hard to believe. Not because anything dramatic happened overnight. It was more like I kept waking up every few days and realizing something else had quietly changed. Like my body had been waiting for permission to fix itself. And once I stopped flooding it with things it didn't know how to process, it just started working the way it was supposed to. The weight was the most visible thing. By day 35, I'd lost 9 pounds. I wasn't counting calories. I wasn't doing anything extreme at the gym. I was just eating real food, stopping when I was full, and not thinking about food constantly the way I used to. That last part, not thinking about food constantly, that was new for me. I didn't realize until it stopped how much mental space food had been taking up. The cravings, the planning around cravings, the guilt after giving in to cravings. It was like background noise I'd gotten so used to that I forgot it was there, and then one day it was quieter, and I could think about other things. By day 40, the skin changes were undeniable. I took photos every 10 days throughout this whole process, specifically because I knew I'd talk myself out of believing the change was real if I didn't have the evidence in front of me. And looking at day 10 versus day 40 side by side, it was a different face. Not a different person, but clearer, less inflamed, more even. The breakouts along my jawline, which I'd been told were hormonal and basically permanent, had almost completely stopped. I was getting maybe one small blemish a week instead of the constant cycle I'd been dealing with for years, and my skin texture overall just felt different, less congested, softer. People started commenting on it without me bringing it up, which honestly meant more than any before and after photo. The research on this is pretty clear. A lot of adult acne and skin inflammation is driven by diet, specifically by high glycemic processed foods that spike your insulin and trigger an inflammatory response. Your skin is one of the first places that inflammation shows up visibly, so when you remove the trigger, the inflammation starts to calm down. It's not magic, it's just biology, finally being allowed to do its job. Around day 45, I had a moment that I've been thinking about ever since. I was at a birthday dinner. There was cake, there were chips on the table, all the things I'd been avoiding for 6 weeks. And I sat there, and I realized I didn't feel desperate. I wasn't white-knuckling it. I wasn't secretly counting down until I could eat the thing I actually wanted. I was just fine, present, enjoying the dinner and the people without food being the main event in my head. And that was strange, because food had always been kind of the main event. Growing up, food was comfort. Food was reward. Food was how you showed someone you loved them. And a lot of the food wrapped up in those memories, birthday cake, fast food after a long week, chips in front of a movie, almost all of it was ultra-processed. So there's a grief that comes with this, that I didn't expect and that I want to name. Honestly, because you're not just changing your diet. You're changing your relationship with something that's tied to memory, to safety, to who you've been your whole life. That deserves to be acknowledged. It's not just about nutrition, it's personal. By day 60, the final numbers looked like this. 14 pounds gone, not chased, just gone, as a byproduct of eating food my body could actually use. My skin breakouts had gone from 6 to 8 a week down to almost 0. My sleep score, I was tracking with an app, had jumped from the low 60s to the mid-80s. My focus sessions, the kind where I actually get deep work done, went from maybe once a week to 5 or 6 times a week. And I got a basic blood panel done at the start and end of the 60 days. My C-reactive protein, which is an inflammation marker, had dropped by around 40%. My doctor looked at the results and told me whatever I was doing, keep doing it. I also want to mention the grocery bill, because people always assume eating this way is expensive. My weekly spend on ultra-processed food and fast food combined was somewhere between $60 and $80. Eating whole foods, produce, eggs, legumes, grains, meat, came out closer to $55. Real food is actually cheaper when you stop buying things that are engineered to make you want more than you need. Now, here's the part I have to be straight with you about. Because these videos, transformation videos, they have a tendency to make everything look clean and linear and triumphant. And this wasn't that. There were days in week 2 where I was genuinely irritable with people I care about and didn't fully understand why until later. There were nights I felt like I was missing out on something. Not just food, but a version of ease and comfort that processed food had always provided. There were moments where this felt less like self-improvement and more like self-punishment. I'm not telling you that to talk you out of trying it. I'm telling you that because if you try this and it gets hard, that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's the actual process. The difficulty is part of it. And it does get easier. It genuinely does. So here's where I landed after 60 days. I'm not perfect about this now. I'm not someone who will never eat a processed thing again. That's not realistic and it's not how I want to live, but I understand my body differently. I understand what food does to my energy, my skin, my mind, in a way I never did before. And the thing I keep coming back to is this. For most of my life, I felt like my body was something that happened to me, like I was just along for the ride. Dealing with the crashes, the breakouts, the brain fog, the cravings. Accepting them is just how I was. 60 days showed me that a lot of that wasn't how I was. It was what I was eating, and that's a genuinely different way to move through the world. And next week, I'm cutting all added sugar, not just processed sugar. All of it. 30 days. After everything I just went through, I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and drop a comment. What's the one processed food you think you could never give up? Mine was Takis. I still think about them more than I'd like to admit. See you next week. Thanks for watching True Health Tales. If this helped you, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next truth.